Hi and welcome to another beginner's guide series, and today I'm going to talk to you about anxiety. Now these series are designed to just tell my clients what we deal with in our clinic and to give you a little bit of an overview before you come in about the types of issues that we deal with. In this case we're going to be talking about anxiety and the main types of anxiety and how we would deal with them in our clinic so that we can reassure you before you come in that we have experience in this area and have dealt with probably thousands of clients over the years to resolve their problem. So you may not realise there is more than one type of anxiety, and that's the first thing that when we're talking to our clients is trying to decide what category vaguely they fit in, because they all have different reasons for why they come about. And the main types of anxiety that you'll find that we see typically in our clinic are one, GAD meaning generalized anxiety, social anxiety disorder, panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessional compulsive disorder, or phobias and fears. And I'm just going to go in on the next slides to talk you through each of those different types of anxiety. It is important for us to understand what you may be suffering from, because the techniques that we use may be slightly different depending on the anxiety that you are experiencing. So GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, one of the biggest issues that we see in our clinic, one of the most popular forms, if you call it that, of anxiety. And this is where you may experience an irrational worry or fear or feeling of dread in more than one situation. So for example, you may feel anxious when you're driving in your car, but then you might also feel a bit unsafe or worried if you're shopping in a shopping centre, and maybe even if you're going out with friends you may feel it. It doesn't seem like there's an underlying reason for it. You can't put your finger on it, but what you do know is that you're feeling anxious pretty much all the time, and it's impacting your daily life. Now, normally people or doctors would say that generalized anxiety is really diagnosed after it's been present for at least 6 months. And our job is to help you understand what your mind is doing for you and then help to resolve whatever the issue is that's creating this problem. We also have social anxiety disorder. This is a facet of anxiety where a person avoids social situations, mainly because they have a fear or a worry about either being judged by others or embarrassing themselves in front of other people. And it can be quite debilitating because it may stop you having relationships, friendships, it may prevent you from getting on in your career or going for job promotions. In fact, people with social anxiety disorder are going to find that it is going to have a big impact on their life, not just psychologically but financially as well, because if you don't do those things, you don't go for that job, if you don't apply yourself or you don't put yourself out there, it's going to affect your bank balance. Our job is to help our clients overcome these fears, to realize that whatever their brain is doing for them is not rational anymore. It's not helpful for them. And even if you are a little bit embarrassed, that's okay, because guess what? We all do stupid things at times, and it doesn't need to affect us in our day-to-day life. We also have OCD, obsessional compulsive disorder, and there are different variations of it and different facets, and also some people may only have mild OCD, some people feel that their entire life has been taken over by these obsessions and compulsions. And some of the biggies that we see are a fear of germs or contaminating either yourself or those around you. Checking, so we've all heard of the person who might go and check the door 20 times just to make sure it's locked. Intrusive thoughts, where a thought comes in your head and you can't seem to get it out of your head. And these thoughts can be really, really distressing. I had one lady who was worried that she may kill her daughter. She was never going to kill her daughter. She wasn't a schizophrenic. She wasn't someone who was a danger to her daughter. It was the fear of killing her that was causing the problem. And then hoarding. Hoarding is another form of OCD, and also having things in order. I think everyone's heard of David Beckham, even though he's probably not been diagnosed with OCD, liking all his Coke cans in the fridge facing the same way. Now, that isn't OCD itself, but if he spent his whole life going around his house, putting things in a certain order and getting really upset or worried if things weren't exactly right, then we might have a facet of the issue. One that we see less often in our clinics is post-traumatic stress disorder. And this can be, you know, horrific for some people because they will have gone through some trauma in their life. Now, the one that people think of when post-traumatic stress disorder is discussed is people, say, who've been in the army, the Air Force, and been to Afghanistan and seen, for example, their friend blown up in front of them. The trauma of that can be relived again and again through flashbacks. And so they may wake up in the middle of the night reliving that moment, suffering from anxiety, sometimes depression, negative thoughts and nightmares. But the thing is with post-traumatic stress disorder, even though that was the main issue that may have pushed it into the forefront, we often find that people with the condition may have had an issue before that big incident occurred that made them prone to the problem. We deal with post-traumatic stress disorder, but there is another form of therapy called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, that is renowned for helping that condition. So sometimes we ask our clients to look into that as well. And finally, we have fears and phobias, and there's a big spider, so if you don't like them, I do apologise. Fears and phobias, we all probably have one. Some people spiders, some people being locked into a small space, some people flying, clowns, you name it, there will be a phobia for it. They create anxiety, but often they're irrational. For example, I will see a client maybe who's got a fear of buttons. There is nothing to fear but by a button. It can't hurt you, it can't harm you, but somehow your mind has connected a button to being problematic, and that has created the fight or flight response in you, and it creates big extreme avoidance tactics. So for example, a person who's got fear of buttons will only buy clothes that have got zips or have no buttons on them. That can be quite problematic in their life when something isn't even going to harm them. We need to unravel it and try and desensitize people to these fears and worries so that they can go about their life without suffering from the issue anymore. So where do all these fears, worries, anxieties come from? Well, did you know that you've got your own personal inner bodyguard? Yes, you do. It's called the subconscious. Imagine many, many years ago that something happened to you that upset you, scared you, or embarrassed you. You don't know quite what the incident is at this moment, but it's there in the back of your mind because your brain learned a lesson that day. And the lesson was, I never want you to experience a similar issue again. And so part of your brain, the subconscious, becomes like a bodyguard. It decides, hey, from now on, I'm going to prevent an issue like that occurring to you again. So what it will do is give you anxiety in a similar situation. The only problem is, as you've grown up into an adult, you've forgotten what the original problem is. Our job is to unravel what that bodyguard is doing by getting you to remember what that problem could be. So believe it or not, this anxious bodyguard of yours isn't actually trying to do something to harm or hurt you. It's actually doing something to help you. It thinks it's being useful. It thinks it's saving you from something that's distressing or worrying or upsetting. The only problem is the bodyguard is acting on information that's old, that's no longer relevant to you as an adult, because the chances are the thing that sparked your problem off started when you were relatively young. Even though you can't remember what it is at this moment, I can guarantee you that in at least 95% of the cases that I see of my clients, their problems began between the ages of around 3 to 7 years old. Our job when we deal with anxiety is, number one, to teach anxiety and stress reduction. So in other words, to calm our clients down and to try and reduce that fight or flight. Then we want to try and get our clients relaxed enough to see if they can remember what sparked off the problem in the first place. That's important because it helps them to re-rationalize what's going on in their brain. If we're dealing with things like fears and phobias, we might add in some exposure therapy as well. In other words, graded exposure to the thing they fear, and slowly building up their resources so that the actual thing that they worry about doesn't feel so frightening after a number of exposures. We'll also use visualization techniques, and we teach our clients self-hypnosis. And in fact, we have some best-selling self-hypnosis audios on our website that we give to people as part of their program, but people buy them as well to use at home to try and help them reduce those worries and fears. So if you have a problem with anxiety, believe us, it's something that we deal with and see thousands of clients, or have seen thousands of clients for since we've been in practice. It's quite normal, and yes, they can be resolved, and also most of the time without medication. Now, we don't get involved in what doctors have given you, whether it's antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. That's for them and you to discuss. But we know that in most cases, anxiety medication masks the problem rather than resolving it, and talking therapy is the thing that tries to help someone let go of the anxiety, either partially or in many cases completely, so that the anxiety medication is no longer needed. If you want to discuss with us or me about anxiety hypnosis, you can give me a call. You can reach me on 01636 650 521, or you can go onto our website balancehypnotherapynottingham.co.uk and send me an email and tell me what your problem is, and we can get in touch with each other and then try and book in either a session in our Nottinghamshire clinics, or you can see me online